initial tap, but then it just echoes. Yeah, it doesn't need a giant bludgeoning. Yeah, that's overkill in a way. All it is a certain whack, and then your head goes like a dog, when the little dog doesn't understand what. I mean, it's understand food or out, and where everyone's listening to spirituality. But if you really hear something that's got some worth, you go like, ooh, wait a minute, because it doesn't fit in to the mental logic. The last thing you need is to have any more shit fitting into the mental logic. You want to have something that sort of is outside the logic, and what happens is then inside the logic gets revealed. Yeah? You hear something that's outside the logic, and the outside reveals the inside. When anything gets absorbed into the system, it doesn't reveal fucking shit about the system. It's added on to it. It's all neutered. It's all safe. It will acquire self-knowledge forever. Yeah, and it doesn't avail us anything. But when a statement comes and it doesn't budge, you can't fucking absorb it. You can't make it into a practice. It's sort of like a big freaking desert tortoise, and a coyote comes up on it. And the coyote wants to get to the meat, but it can't get to the fucking meat. After about 4 minutes, it gives up. That's sort of what these type of messages are like, yeah? The head will try to, okay, where am I in all this? You're not. You're not in this statement at all. That's the good news. It has nothing to do with you. It's describing a you. You. It's describing an activity that when you hear it correctly, it reveals, it shines the light on the noun, on the sense of being Paul, this action, historical action figure. There's suddenly, it's seen in a different light. It's not like a spotlight. You see it, and you see that it's a lot of different parts. There's no whole there. Yeah? You're just another activity. So, there's a lot of these cryptic statements inserting in certain writings. There's a famous one I love. I love a Zen master called Huang Po, old Chinese Zen master, because one of the things is because one of his followers was a scribe for the emperor's court. So he would write down the talk. It's not like 300 years later. Like that night, he wrote it down, what Huang Po said, so he caught it pretty much out of the horse's mouth. And Huang Po was one abrupt motherfucker, basically, in a lot of ways. So Huang Po says, whatever can be perceived, so whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. So suddenly we're all off the game board. The game isn't about Boop and Eiffel Tower. It's not, the Monopoly game ain't about the pieces. Yeah? So whatever can be perceived, okay, can't be perceiving. Okay? The eyes aren't what's seeing, the ears aren't what's hearing. I can see eyes, They're not seeing. They facilitate seeing, yeah? But they're not the source of the seeing, yeah? The ear isn't hearing a fucking thing. It's the animating principle that hears through the ear. It ain't the ear. Ear hears nothing. There's no ear that's ever heard a note, ever. Yeah? So these common assumptions, though common, aren't true, basically, yeah? So, and then the language, which is the biggest purveyor of the whole story, because the language is a subjective language used by objects, yeah? So the object is implying through what it's saying that it's the subject all day. And then it's assuming or implying it has a lot to do with shit it has nothing to do with. Like, I hurt my knee surfing. Is that really true? Did I go out there with a hammer and wait between waves and whack? And then you could say, I hurt my knee. Like I was the one who hurt the knee, but I didn't hurt the knee. The knee got hurt, and I was more surprised than anything. I was fucking totally caught by surprise out there with a bum knee, and then I had to get back onto the shore. So I was very surprised. But after just a half hour getting back there, when you start passing on the story, I hurt my knee, Ocean Beach, I hurt my knee. If you say it a fucking enough times, they're gonna believe it's so. Because what's agreeing to it is reality. We're reality, in a way. We take things lightly, but it's not a thought that can ruin a day. It's you believing a thought that can ruin a day. Yeah? So we got a lot of mojo, a lot of freaking juice that is being used constantly, almost against our interests, yet we have no idea our position or our role in it. And if there's like great relief in recovery, and basically you finally say, oh, I had something to do with that robbery I was at. You know what I mean? I mean, begrudgingly, you finally admit the tiniest little bit of responsibility, and then there's a possibility of a lot of relief. Yeah? But we're giving everything all the meaning it has. That's a big, big, big job. If we were doing it, we'd be exhausted, but we're not doing it, we're being it. Being it doesn't demonstrate much effort or thought. But if we were doing it, if we were doing the dreaming, we'd be fucking exhausted. Yeah? But, so, these statements, the language is constantly yapping all day. You hear thoughts, you know. Don't you? You don't see thoughts, you hear them. And even in that little example, they sound like, quote unquote, your voice, which isn't your voice, it's the vocal cords of a body, but of course you think the body's you, so you call it your voice. You see, you're already bound to it so completely before we even start wiggling, trying to get out of it. You're all completely bound to the idea. I mean, completely, yeah? So then the double whammy is that you will now feel very uncomfortable at times being Paul, or doing Paul in a sense, and you'd like to get out of Paul, but now the double lock on the system is you will now pursue a way of getting out of Paul, but as Paul every step of the way. So Paul can't get out of Paul. Self can't get out of self. The seeker can't get out of the seeking as the seeker. And there's no way, there's a statement in recovery, which is a huge boogaboo, very few people talk about, really. Because what are you going to do with it, really? It says, you got to quit playing God. Wow, it's a pretty big statement. Yeah. So, and it's around this statement or this step in AA program, which is the third step, which is the principle of recovery, which is turning one's will and life over to the care of something greater than self, basically. Greater than self is a beautiful statement. Yeah? If you see self as other, it makes total sense. Yeah? If you call it you, it doesn't make sense. But if you see self as something other than you, so it says, you're going to turn your life, seemingly, over to the care of something greater than self. Because obviously, it's in the care of self right now by being identified as self. Yeah? So, where does self present? It presents in the head, yeah? It presents itself through the language as the doer, the haver, the beer, the one who is there, the one that's going to be there. Yeah? So it's basically playing God all day. So you wake up in the morning, it tells you how 5 o'clock's going to be that day. You're not there yet, but it tells you, oh, fucking 5 o'clock's going to suck. What's that but playing God? It has a story about you, has a story about everyone you meet, It has a story about the job, has a story about this, has a story about that bad foot or whatever it may be. And it's pontificating constantly, playing God. So in AA it says, hey, before this incredible possibility of turning your will and life over to care of something greater than itself, you gotta quit playing God. What? Oh yeah. So, but what would happen if that which is playing God reads the statement and goes, all right, I'm gonna quit playing God. But that which is playing God is now gonna try to quit playing God. Yeah? Wouldn't that be playing God? Wouldn't it go ad infinitum? How could you get out of it? By it. Yeah? How could you get out of playing God through that which is playing God? Yes? Do you see it? The fundamental flaw? You can't get out because you're assuming you're in. Yeah? There's an assumption that you're a self, and when that becomes stabilized, you want out because it's fucking really uncomfortable. Yeah? It's uncomfortable to be all that's thought about all fucking day. And then also with a negative attitude or a feeling of like nothing's ever going to go my way. What a way to go. You know, could you imagine if you woke up every morning and the odds were like totally against your favor? You know what I mean? Fucking shit, of course I'm going to watch binge network or Netflix, eat too much or something that fucking distract myself from the unbearability of being managed by this insane head. And I can't seem to break the contract because I'm identified as it. So I'm trying to get out of it as it, and therefore I'm constantly, completely immersed in it. In all the pursuit to get out is the bigger in of all. Yeah? It's a conundrum. It's a dilemma. So if that which is playing God claims to be that which is going to quit playing God, you're going to be in for a lot of fucking playing God around God. So at that point, your idea of surrender is like commerce, basically. You're going to turn your life over to something, but if you want something more, you'll take it back like that. You say, wait a minute, I want to get a date, so fuck, I don't trust God, so I'm going to play God again. So, because you made up with God, and of course, the God you made up is going to be smaller than the God that's playing God, yeah? So now, God is going to be based on you wanting to know it or not, which is mind-bogglingly arrogant, you know? How, like when we were a kid, when I was growing up with Catholics, they had catechism and they had these 3 points about God. Omnipresent, means all everywhere. Omnipotent, all powerful. Omniscient, all seeing. And I always wonder, why am I not running into God? If it's everywhere, I should be rubbing against them sooner or later. You know what I mean? It just totally escaped how could that's what's everywhere escape my attention? Because Paul was looking for it. Yeah, that's the trouble. This is a simple message. It was applied in AA for me, and it changed the whole program of AA for me. Because it revealed, when I saw that I was not a self, something became available that hadn't been available, which is, as soon as I saw I wasn't self, the next possibility that arose was I could be free from it. And when that idea arose, I could be free from it, what did it first reveal? That I had been trying to be free as it for my whole fucking life. That's what it revealed. Yeah? The possibility revealed why it didn't seem to be possible all those fucking years. Because I was caught in that conundrum of self trying to get out of self. That little statement downloaded tons of evidence. It connected all these dots. Because I went to India, I went to Thailand, but the intention was exactly the same. to find Buddha or whatever. It didn't matter where I went. The same theme was always there. Paul looking to get something for Paul and as Paul and through Paul. When the whole point is freedom from Paul. Not freedom as Paul or waiting for Paul if Paul works hard enough, but from the whole fucking dilemma. Yeah? And the beautiful news, freedom from Paul is inherently available. There's never not been freedom from Paul. It's always been available, yeah? But that which it's available to, being identified as Paul, couldn't see it, yeah? So it had to see that it wasn't Paul to see the inherent condition of freedom. Not a freedom that comes after I've been released from bondage. No, a freedom prior to all that shit. Yeah? That it has nothing to do with what you did or didn't do or how clear you are or not. It's just the fact. Yeah? Always available at all times. Now, from Paul, that doesn't seem to be so. Because Paul is assuming to be the fact. So then the inherent fact has to be denied for Paul to be the fact. Yeah? Because why the hell would that which is so look for that which is so? It doesn't need to look because it never lost it. Yeah? It doesn't need to try to find it because it's never lost it. So this message is trippy as hell because it erodes all the foundations that all our quote-unquote solutions are built on. Because most of all the solutions that we believe in have a lot to do with us. Where this solution has nothing to do with us, basically. It negates the us, or its incredible relevance, and by losing interest in you, there's a gaining interest in what you are. But you can gain interest in what you are through what you're not. If what you're not wants to get interested in what it is, it's going to use the interest in what it is to emphasize what you're not. Yeah? So you're never going to get there by looking for it. Yeah? You don't get there at all because you've never left to get back. And I mean, it sounds cryptic, but in fact, it's true. Yeah? So the freedom is prior to the fact of that I've lost it. Because you see it, that ain't a fact. When there's a Paul, the fact that Paul must have lost something, like connection to God, it seems like a fact, only because Paul's the fact. If Paul is seen not to be so, then everything, it's sort of suddenly the horse is in front of the cart, blue is blue, red is red, things fucking make sense. And I don't mean in the mental logic, because the mental logic is completely insane. But if you're in it, it makes total sense. But if you see it from outside, it's an insane fucking idea. The whole mental logic is tomorrow is more important than now, which is mind-boggling. I used to have this story about an alien race. The scientists get a 10-year grant to study us, Earth. So they land in America, and in 5 minutes they call up the planet, home planet, says, okay, we're done. And they go, wait a minute, you got 9 years and 364 days and 23 and a half hours left. Oh no, we've learned all that we need to know. And he says, any society that puts profit over health is fucking insane. It's just that fucking simple. I mean, there's no debating it. There's no, oh, wait a minute, let's try that on. Let's see how we can make it. It's insanity. Totally, completely insane. Yeah. What more? So, this is what happens. Things that made sense when something was in place make absolutely no sense when that assumed place has been questioned. Yeah. And now you have an immunity to what's not happening because it's obvious it's not happening. It's not like you went to 8 years of school to learn how to recognize what's not happening. It's fucking not happening. You know what I mean? You don't need to recognize it. It is. It's not happening. Next week is not happening. It can be happening here if I'm entertaining it because I'm all there fucking is. And I don't see how it's not getting through, how much mojo and power we have, because there's these like a Jesus Christ, one of his big credits was raising Lazarus from the dead. But at least Lazarus had been alive at one time. We're making shit out of nothing all fucking day. We're like complete miracle workers. We're ruining vacations, we're ruining relationships out of some weird fucking suspicion. We're just assuming so much fucking shit. And it would be funny if there wasn't so much power behind it. Because we're a huge power source that's being directed like into burning ants. It's like, so, all right, what can we do with the power of the sun? Let's burn ants. This is what it's like. Let's think about Paul all fucking day. Let's go over what Paul did or didn't do, most importantly. Or let's go over what Amelia did. Let's go over that. There's really juicy there. Now, that kind of concentrated light is deadly. The same light, if it was dispersed, is what we call a sunny day. But if that light, if we're all walking around with these mental magnifying heads, and we're just fucking making shit out of nothing all day, we're just miracling every second. And we're like the last person to fucking know. Even though we're strutting around, I have so much power. But the fact is, you have shortchanged yourself so dramatically. Oh, I have 5 people working underneath me. You're giving everything all the meaning it has. It's a lot bigger job description. I got 5 people working over. I got more money than they do. Whatever fucking. It's mind-boggling. And how can you escape it? How can you escape? Like we have a thing in AA, one of the many acronyms for fear. False evidence appearing real. I'm too lazy to remember the other one, so I like that one. False evidence appearing real. All right. You don't see the power there? False evidence can appear real to us all day. It's mind-boggling to me. Completely mind-boggling. False evidence appears real. So how the hell can it appear real if it's false evidence? It can appear real to what's real. And I don't see how the finger doesn't point to where you are. Not here, but as what we are, mind. Because we're giving it the meaning it has. We're giving false evidence the meaning that it's real. And then totally forgetting that, and then giving relevance and reality to that which we're dreaming. There's a book called The Course in Miracles. Interesting book. If it's for you, it's very enlivening. It'll definitely set a fire up in there. There's a statement there that describes this whole thing to a T for me, which is, you and I, not you and I as this, you and I are the dreaming of the dream. I don't believe there's a dream, so let's say you and I are the dreaming of the dreaming. Okay? It's a pretty big statement. And we forget that we're dreaming, which is, how could that happen? It can't, but it can seem to happen. See, this is the trick. It can appear to what is true to have happened, but it has never happened. That which is dreaming cannot forget that it's dreaming. There's not one point where it stops dreaming to be able to forget it. Yeah? It's constantly in the act of dreaming. It doesn't need to be remembering, or it can't be forgotten. It's just what's happening incessantly. Yeah? So, all right, you and I are dreaming this dreaming, but we forget seemingly. This is the real essence of the dream, the dreaming. We forget that we're dreaming. Wow, how can we do that? Well, first of all, you need time to do that. You need time to seem to forget something that's unforgettable. In timelessness, it can't be forgotten, obviously, because it's never gone anywhere. But in time, it can seem to be forgotten. Yes, okay. So, all right, we seem to forget by being identified as the dreamt, basically. So the dreaming goes, hey, I'm the dreamt, I'm Paul. And then he makes up a language to support it all fucking day, and incessantly hears it all day, so it can keep this idea seemingly to be true that I'm Paul the dreamt. All right, so suddenly in this condition, what happens? When I am the dreaming, now everything it's dreaming suddenly is given the ability to affect the dreamt. So now the dreaming fucking starts feeling the slings and arrows of fucking life. Yeah? It starts feeling pain and suffering, and it's like, what the fuck? But now it's identified, so it can only think of getting out of the dreamt as the dreamt. So it can't escape now. It's sort of like it got on the ride and it can't get out. Yeah? And it's forgotten that it's the dreaming, and now it wants to hear, I'm the dreaming, but as the dreamt. That doesn't fucking work. It will just drive the dreamt fucking crazy, because you'll read The Secret or Law of Attraction, and then shit won't really happen. You go, what the hell? I'm not a good dreaming. But no, so the message that you're the dreaming isn't for the dreamt. It's for the dreaming. So the dreaming will go, hey, I'm not the dreamt. But it goes nowhere to tell, tell you as the dreamt, you're dreaming. Oh yeah, sure. You can only hold that as the dreamt. You know, let's say you go on a 3-day retreat where you chant all day, you're not a body. Now, what's not a body is not going to go on a 3-day retreat chanting it's not a body. It's very clear it's not a body. What's going to do that is a body. A seeming body is going to go, fuck, I want to get out of the body, but as the body. You see? This is the dilemma. This is the little... You may be conscious or aware of the first lot, but the second lot does you in. Now you're trying to get out is another bigger form of being in. Yeah. So there's no escape. That's the great wisdom. There's no escape from an imaginary place. You get out of here by being completely here. And yet, you don't want to be completely here. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you're busily trying to get out of here. And because it's you trying to get out of here, and you as being the center of the inn ain't never going to get out of itself. So you hear these simple statements. It's not a sadist, hey, self can't get out of self. It was a beautiful warning. Or like Lord Ramana constantly, in most of his writings, he makes a statement. And he says it in a lot of different ways. And what he says is there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing. So this is a non-existent thing, right? Without the animating spirit, that's what spirit means, animating force, let's say. Without the spirit, this is a non-existent thing. Yeah. All right, so there's a presupposing of this non-existent thing by that which is existing to be itself, basically, yeah? So the mind presupposes that it's the body. So suddenly, all right, now the presupposing of a non-existent thing, fueled by the animation, and then now suddenly, that now animated non-existent thing now wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. Not from it, because the salvation from it is inherently available. It's non-existent. You don't have to be saved from a non-existent thing. Obviously. How are you going to get out of a non-existent thing? The whole premise is that you're in it. That's why you want to get out of it, but you've never been in it. Yeah. So there's the presupposing of a non-existent thing that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. And if this is the case, your spiritual practices themselves will be used to reinforce the non-existent thing. How can they, meaning the spiritual practices, destroy the non-existent thing? There's a shoe to fit and see if it wear it. If it fits, wear it. It fit for me and it ruined my career pretty much. I could have been really helpful in this life. Now I don't see helpful as being that helpful in a lot of respects. In AA I think it's helpful, but on this level I don't think it's helpful. I think getting nothing is the true helpful. To realize if you keep getting nothing and you realize you've walked in with nothing, you left with nothing, you've gotten nothing, you'll see it as everything. Sooner or later, it's going to dawn on you. And when it dawns on you, more as you, it reveals it's always been this way. So it negates any reality of time or this was true and now it isn't. No, it was never true, ever. In other words, what you are is as brilliant as it's always been. Yeah? And you can seem to forget it as long as you fucking want in time, but it ain't gonna change the fact of it. Yeah? And when it reverts back to the fact, it'll be like nothing ever happened anyway. So you're not gonna have 40 years of missing out when it dawns on you. All that belief and all that fucking shit will be erased. Yeah? And while you're waiting, if that's the case, you get a daily reprieve every night you go to sleep. Don't you? You get relieved of the bondage of self. It's built into the system. There's been mercy. There's mercy. Can you imagine if you were up 24 hours a day, every day? The thoughts, there would be no, you just, that would be so painful, man. Can you imagine to be the only thing that's been thought about most of your fucking life? Millions and billions of thoughts concerning something that you're not. Yeah, so what happens? I don't know what will happen with you. But I feel you'll travel lighter through the rest of your days here. No matter what those days have in store for the action figure, it may not be great, it may not be roses, it may have a lot of tribulations and trials, but no matter, you'll travel lighter through it and it'll be over as if it never happened. So I say, what more do you want, really? I mean, the idea of enlightenment is just fool's gold, in my humble opinion. And awakening is also, people would be better if they never heard the term awakening. And the fucking, you know what the demands people have put upon themselves because they're not enlightened or they're gotta, what hell? So it's amazing. The word means cessation of all suffering, but when the mental state claims it, it uses it to produce suffering. Isn't that mind-boggling? Can you imagine? That would be like, let's leave the planet. You know, like in 1 minute. See that? All right, these people here, this lovely term, enlightenment, is being used to just promote tons of fucking suffering. Jesus Christ, you know? When the definition of it means the exact opposite, cessation of all suffering, our claiming it from the dreamt uses it to produce more suffering. What more evidence do you need? Why would you want to follow that logic? You don't need 800 examples. It reveals itself in one glaring fucking little statement. The thought system uses now to think about yesterday and tomorrow. How much more evidence, how much information do you need? Oh, I'm not convinced yet. Well, so I'm sticking with it, right? I think I can fucking rehab it. You know, maybe I can get into the moment or whatever. It's all fucking bullshit. See, it's an insane system. How many examples do you need? One can do. like that. I mean, it blew my mind when I saw the thought system in all of its fucking glory. Because I was up on coke for many times, 10 days, and I got all the information I had ever needed. I was waiting for the right light to really use it in the right way. When my head had it, it would just cause tons of fucking suffering. But weathering those 10-day runs of cocaine revealed a fucking lot. And I was alive long enough to have it come back to me. And one of it is that thought system pictures you as a body. You're thought about quite a lot every day. Therefore, you're thought about as a body quite fucking a lot. It's not enough to be thought about as a body now, because it still wouldn't bind you to it, that idea, because you're fucking inherently free. It has to create time, not create, past and future, so that it can think about you as a body, tons of different places and different times, and then worry about you as a body in the future with tons of different scenarios that probably will never come to pass. You know what I mean? It can just riff. It can play thousands of fucking of hollow notes. Oh, I could have cancer. On and on and on. What more do you need to see? The thought system, which is broadcasting, blaring all fucking day, sees you and I as a body. It has you're not gonna convince the thought system, you're not gonna change the source code of the thought system. The body can chant it's not a body for fucking 5 months straight. It's still gonna leave thinking it's a body. It's pointless to talk to you and I about the message. It's important to throw the message over the head, over the outreaching arm of the action figure, so that big mind, spirit, whatever you want to call it, receives it. Because if you tell the Buddha, hey, you can't use the Buddha, bro, to look for the Buddha gets it very fast. It's like, oops, oh, yes, that would be absurd for me, the Buddha, to look for the Buddha and actually use the Buddha to look for the Buddha. Yeah? It would be instantaneous. Yes, that topic done. No going back. I don't have to go, I'm going to have to redo that class. No, it's like fucking okay. Hey, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. Oh, this fucking clear as day. Yeah. Okay. But see, now if the mental state of Paul catches that message, and then it says, it just drives Paul fucking crazy. These cryptic statements. What are they talking about? You can't use the Buddha. Of course I'm not using the Buddha. I'm using Buddhism to seek the Buddha. And it makes total sense. And I have a lot of people who think I'm doing great. And they're all invested in it. And I've joined a Sangha, and we're all using Buddhism to seek the Buddha. Makes total sense. As AKA Paul. But if it's the Buddha, it makes no sense. Now the Buddha can go, hey, I can express myself really well through Buddhism. Oh, fucking far out. I think I will. That's cool. Because it's not trying to acquire what it is. It's seeking an expression. That's cool. I think that. But when the premise goes unnoticed, it will affect you every step of the way. If you don't see it, you'll be looking from it. And the way you'll be looking from it is, you'll be looking for the Buddha with the Buddha, which is the only fucking way to forget that you're the Buddha, is to be looking for the Buddha with the Buddha. The only thing that could fool the Buddha is Buddha itself. So if the Buddha is looking for the Buddha, it can fool itself. So this message isn't up to you, man. Fuck that. I see it doesn't go anywhere. You know, you'll just make something out of this message and it'll be a path. We'll now be practicing the path of non-duality, which is impossible. Non-duality is a fact. That's as simple as that. There isn't two. It doesn't say there's one. That's all fantasy. There isn't two. That's all. There's no subject-object. There's no thinker and thought about. There's no this or that. There's no hearer and hearing. There's just hearing. There's just seeing. There's just feeling. There's just tasting. There's just touching. There's just justing. Yeah? Yeah? So here, he says it this way, beautifully. He goes, simply stated, the problem. Now, it doesn't say one of many problems. This is the 80th level problem. No, the problem, which is pretty important. This is an old student of Ramana Maharshi. Simply stated, the problem is that there is a perception that's being reinforced all fucking day by the head. Yeah? There is a perception that there is an individual self, Paul, which wants to extinguish itself so that the state of realization. See, so Paul wants to extinguish itself, but it wants to be there to experience it. So Paul wants to get rid of Paul completely, but wants to still be Paul to get it. See? It doesn't work. It never will work. So, simply stated, the problem is that there is a perception that there is an individual self which wants to extinguish itself. So what? So that the state of realization will be revealed. But anything which the individual self tries to do to eliminate itself merely prolongs its own existence. Try to get out of that. This is meant to save you fucking time. Yeah? If you hear this and then suddenly you look and you see your two thumbs are in the Chinese thumb thing, okay. You don't start going like this because he's just saying that's going to prolong it. Okay, let's just sit here and let's see what gets fucking revealed. Yeah, instead of reading it, oh, I understand that. But I'm different, I'm special. I'm going to be the only one that's going to get out of this. Yeah. All right, so realization will be revealed, but anything which the individual self tries to do to eliminate itself merely prolongs its own existence. If one sees spiritual practice as something that one does to attain realization, then there is no solution to this problem. Now, you can exempt yourself from this shoe, but if I would do is I'd put my foot in there, and if it fits, fucking wear it. And then open up, and some things will be revealed, and you'll be directed in a new way. Things will change. Without much thought or effort, you'll just be at... See, this is like the culmination of things, see? By the time something is so totally inherently clear, and maybe months later you get a sense of it somewhat as this. This is way on a time delay. This is like, it's the last one to fucking know that things have really changed. Like we say in AA, other people realize something's happening to you before you do. Yeah. Yet you're totally keen on trying, but you're just, because you're an expression, you're a culmination. Yeah. So mind changes, and then it expresses to here, and then it starts, hey, I'm traveling later, and then it tries to write itself into the story. I learned how to travel later, whatever. And then, but now you recognize the burglar. Yeah, you see it, and when you see it, you don't call it me. See, that's the key. A lot of people recognize the foreign installment, but when they recognize it, they call it me. They're identified as it, so they can't get out of it. But when you start seeing it, and you don't say, that ain't me, then you watch it, and you know what? It won't break into the house if you're home. It won't. You'll catch it. You'll fucking be awake to being awake. Instead of being asleep to being awake. You cannot change the fact you're awake. Most of us are trying to. We don't want to be awake. We want to go to sleep. We don't want to be totally awake, hearing all those fucking thoughts. Most people are trying to not be awake. The biggest problem here is awakeness, not non-awakeness. Awakeness is a fucking heavy responsibility. Yeah, you're incessantly on, and this thing fucking can't handle it, really. It can't handle being the center of the universe, though it wants to be. It can't handle being all that it's thought about. It's way too much for it. Yeah? That's why, I remember I shot up once, many times, but we went to this fucking 3-day metal festival in Oakland to meet some guy on one of the pedestrian bridges buying quote-unquote opium. My friend and I weren't heavy metal. We drive back to the city, we cook up the opium and we shoot it up. You can shoot up opium. And we're talking to each other going, hey, do you feel it coming on? And we're trying to coax ourselves into something, you know what I mean? And then suddenly my girlfriend comes in and goes, man, it smells like incense in here. We had shot up incense. But even though it was obvious, we shot it again. Maybe there's a tiny little bit of opium. We shot it again. That's how unbearable it was. I was hoping there was even the tiniest little, just change how I feel. Fucking unbelievable. I swear to God, shot it fucking again. And I probably would have done it a third time. My girlfriend had, but she stood there, watched us. You can't be fucking serious. You're not going to do another one. We had to we didn't want to lose our face. We had to go, okay, roll down. There's some fucking crazy shit. I mean, people just don't do stuff like that. You've got to be driven. Something is demanding you to get out, no matter what the consequences are. Fucking, it's unbearable. As me, for me. And stuck in the self, can't get out of self. I swear, I gave it the best shot I ever did. with drug use. I swear to God, if you could get out of self as a self, I would have. I swear, I was totally devoted to it. I gave up, I gave everything for it. I loved cocaine. I just loved everything. I would do anything for it. And yet, man, I just was super pissed because it always failed. You can't get out of an imaginary place as an imaginary fucking thing. And I swear, I say this a lot, I compare my devotion to drug use to any spiritual devotee in the annals of fucking spirituality. The monkey god, I was right up there with him. And I'm telling you, I couldn't say, well, I was a perfect spiritual practitioner. I wasn't. But I was a perfect fucking intravenous drug user. And I'm telling you, you cannot transcend an imaginary place. You cannot get out of an imaginary place as an imaginary person. If I could have, I fucking would have. I mean, really, I left it all on the fucking mat. Completely. Totally dedicated to it. There's not one glitch I could say, oh, you know, if I would have just pushed. No, I fucking pushed it. 10 days in a row, shooting up my neck, fucking just huge shots, willing to overdose, just to see if I could snap that fucking head and find some fucking freedom. Yeah. Then I come out of overdoses, and there would be my familiar friends. 2 cops, fucking back in the same movie again. Yeah! I was so fucking pissed. I can't even get out of here. Yeah, it's frustrating. So, yes. So there's a statement in here, it's gorgeous. Never mind, that's enough. There's a great statement that Ramana says about surrender. He says, the absolute is, who is there to surrender and to whom? Yeah? What you do is The fact is, you entertain the idea of surrendering self, and the beautiful news is that you're even prior to that. There's no surrendering self. There's no self to surrender. It's a fact. It may not be a fact now in your life in this little time frame, but it's telling you it's a fact. You've never been bound. You've never been separated. You've never left. All of the shenanigans that we participate in have not left one mark on what we are. Completely untouched by all the little shenanigans and antics we've gotten into as these little imaginary animated action figures. Yes? There's no need to forgive. The freedom is prior to forgiveness. So why not let a little of that come into your day? See what happens. Let it come into your program. See what happens. Let it come into your relationships. See what happens. Yeah. All right. So that's that. Waiting for Zen Mark, but he's not coming, I guess. All right. Any questions? You, bro, you're all right, eh?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yes.
A Zenbitchslap. Yeah. Good. Yes? You? You got one, eh? You weren't expecting that. Mind is fertile, bro. Mind is completely fertile. It already knows. Yeah. Have faith in it. So, all right, we'll end with let's pass a basket. Yes, I need some cash for tonight. And also, because you're here, I have shirts outside and I have